TvAgro Specials. Bonsai is expression. Bonsai is art. Bonsai is life. Perhaps bonsai is the expression of the art of life. José Pons Ferrer. Bonsai art form. The term bonsai is Japanese in origin, and it means planted in a pot. It's considered an art form identified with Zen Buddhism, and its history dates back at least 1,000 years. In those days, keeping a tree inside a pot was a symbol of achieving eternity. It was practice common among nobles and individuals of high society. The purpose of bonsai is to create a miniaturized but realistic representation of nature, using techniques such as trimming and wires. These are not genetically dwarf plants. In fact, any species of tree can be used to grow bonsai, although without a doubt some species are more suitable than others.
People say that the history of bonsai goes back to Japan and China, anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000 years ago. Some say that the first person to grow bonsai was a monk. He belonged to a monastery whose monks begged for food in the nearby town using a small bowl. One day, he found a small tree that had fallen off a cliff. He put it in his bowl and took care of it. Since he now had nothing to beg with, the monk starved to death, and his fellow monks continued to care for the tree, or so the story goes. The world came to know bonsai when the Eiffel Tower was inaugurated in 1887, when the Japanese exhibited them. At the time, people thought it was incredible that trees could grow on flower pots. From then on, bonsai were developed until World War II arrived. Thanks to exchanges that took place in the middle of the war, it was taken to the United States, and from there it spread all over the world. Bonsai arrived in Colombia approximately 40 years ago. It is said that the first Japanese to introduce bonsai were those that built the Lido Theater. That's how bonsai came to be known in Colombia. We have many advantages because of our location in the tropics. We have no seasons. Trees grow very fast, so we grow bonsai faster than in Japan. I took a liking to bonsai approximately 28 years ago. We originally grew cactus here on the farm, and we started to gather and collect bonsai without much technique. We didn't know anything. Literature was scarce, and it was difficult to learn. Afterwards, we started to cultivate them and sell them, and we never abandoned our passion for collecting these miniature trees. Nowadays, we produce on a large scale for commercial greenhouses and for customers who have their own private collections. Bonsai always ends up being a hobby, and like every hobby, it has no limits. You grow and collect them, and yet they have no commercial value, but they do have sentimental value. You can take care of a tree for 25 or 28 years, and by that point, they become like a member of the family. Sometimes you take care of them, sometimes not so much, but they're very grateful. Anytime you show them affection, they respond immediately. I now invite you to learn about cultivating bonsai.
Cultivation of bonsai is done in such a way that they remain small, yet at the same time look really old. There are different methods to propagate trees with the traits necessary to make them suitable for use as bonsai. This allows us to control their size and shape. Next, we will learn some of the different reproductive techniques that can be used to obtain bonsai.
We are now in the propagation greenhouse. The propagation greenhouse is wrapped in plastic, and temperatures get pretty high. It should be very humid. We normally use sand as a propagation medium. Bonsai can propagate through seed or through cuttings or inserts. Here, we primarily propagate through seeds and cuttings.
Making bonsai consists of using the shape and age of each tree, of combining movement with equilibrium and harmony with variety, Kurihara Masayuki. Stay tuned on TvAgro Specials. We now return to TvAgro Specials. Growing a bonsai from a seed allows us to wield complete control from the earliest possible stage. Even though it takes a long time, at least 3 years, before you have a tree that you can start to work with. That's perhaps the only way to create a bonsai from scratch. It's important to keep in mind that there are no special bonsai seeds, since they are created from normal trees.
These are acacia seeds. These are camu seeds. We normally open them up, wash them, and they are ready to begin the process. Then we plant the seeds. We more or less spread them out so that when the tree sprouts, we can see the difference here. When grown by seed, they grow a main root. When we use cuttings, they grow many secondary roots. Let's do this. We spread the seeds. After approximately 2 or 2.5 months, when they've sprouted, then we pluck them out. Then, when we transplant it, we trim it for the first time. We trim the roots and the branches, and they're ready for planting. Same as these.
The seeds should be left out in the open, in a place with soft sunlight and ample humidity, making sure that they don't get soaked. After a year, the plants in the seedling bed can be separated and placed in larger pots. Depending on the species, it would take at least 3 years of unrestricted growth for the plants to grow directly from seed to be ready for their first bonsai trimming. Propagation through cuttings is a technique widely used by bonsai aficionados because it's a fast and economical way of obtaining new trees. We use the term cuttings to refer to branches or twigs that are planted on the ground in order to get roots to grow at their base. Compared to seed propagation, it allows you to significantly reduce the time need to grow a full tree. It also lets you know beforehand what its characteristics will be.
You can also propagate through cuttings by selecting the pieces that will be planted from what we call a mother tree. You cut them, clean them up. You leave them approximately 8 or 10 centimeters, and then we plant them in sand. We normally use aloe vera or hormonagro as a rooting agent. So you plant the cuttings, which we have previously dipped in rooting agent. Depending on the species, there are some that take less than 2 months to grow roots, and others take up to 5 and 6 months. On average, cuttings will develop a good root system by the 2nd or 3rd month. Here we use masonry sand, And we've also tried with black gravel that's very fine-grained. We've tried with river sand, with mulch, but this sand is the best.
After planting the cuttings, the most important thing is to give them abundant moisture. In this greenhouse, we irrigate through permanent nebulization. You should apply foliar fertilizer approximately every 15 or 20 days so that they will stay well fertilized and can grow healthy roots. Because this soil has been sterilized, there is no need to fumigate against plagues or diseases. After a year, the cuttings can be separated and planted in larger pots. Some species take anywhere from 1 to 2 years of unrestrained growth before they are ready to be molded into bonsai for the first time. Others can already tolerate a slight torsion to give curvature to the stem. Nature expresses its timelessness through very slow changes. Bonsai makes clear nature's slow march. Kyuzu Murata. We will return to TvAgro Specials. We now return to TvAgro Specials.
We now move on to the planting stage. We already trimmed the first roots, and we make the hole, making sure that the transplanted roots are always right side up. We plant the cutting and we keep on planting. This soil already has sand mixed in. 1 part sand, 1 part worm castings, 1 part pig manure, and 2 parts black soil. Depending on the species, the trees can be transplanted when they have developed strong roots. For some species, it can take up to 2, 4, and even 5 months.
After transplanting, the plants are watered. This should be done in different ways depending on the season. In winter, they should be watered every 2 or 3 days. In summer, 2 or 3 times per day. The best water to use is rainwater, since it's better absorbed by the tree's roots. When you irrigate with normal water, you should let it stand for 25 hours before spraying it, since it contains chemicals like chlorine, which can harm the plant.
From then on, we add chemical fertilizer every 3 months, like triple 15, plantosan, or fertilon, and foliar fertilizer every month. We have some trees that are 4 or 5 years old, and they've passed the seedling stage. We normally prune them every 2 or 3 months. We apply foliar fertilizer just about every month and chemical fertilizer every 2 months, like plantosan, fertilon, but not urea, because that makes the leaves grow too large, and what we want is for the leaves to get smaller. So you open 2 holes and you pick up this amount here in my hand.
En la mano.
Pruning is essential to keeping the trees in optimal conditions. The more frequent and thorough the pruning, the longer the bonsais will keep. There are 2 ways of doing this maintenance and shape pruning. Sometimes you can find small trees in nature, trees that, because of natural circumstances, such as lack of nutrients, grow very small. And even though it can be difficult to uproot these trees, transport them home, and get them to take root, They often possess great qualities which can be used to create a bonsai. The majority of cases, the best moment to unearth them and take them out of the forest is right before the tree starts to grow. Afterwards, you have to make sure they are perfectly rooted before you start shaping them as bonsai.
We now invite you to collect a small tree from the forest. This is the tree that we chose. First, we take off the surface dirt in order to trace it well. From here, we can take a cutting to plant later, so we choose some cuttings. Which is what we plant in the seedling beds. You shouldn't touch the center roots, just around the edges. When it's ready, you cut from the top.
Cortarle acá un poquito.
The tree is now ready to be worked on. We'll work on it downstairs. Now it's ready for us to work on it. We're going to take it downstairs and turn it into a bonsai. We're now ready to begin. First thing we do is to prepare the soil. We turn it over. We use warm castings, pig manure, black dirt, and sand.
Abono de los cerdos, tierra negra y arena.
Let the dirt drain very well. We move the soil around, making sure there are no lumps.
When making bonsai, the key is not to overplay your hand, not to force them, to let nature be, to wait, and to love. Hensuke Hamano. We will return to TvAgro Specials. We will return to TvAgro Specials.
Esta más gruesita.
These are warm castings. Now we do the same with pig manure. And black dirt. And now we stir it. And now the soil is ready. The soil should be such that when I squeeze, it makes a ball, but when I open my hand, it loosens up. It doesn't stay lumpy. Now we start with the tree. We should always look for the first roots. Keep in mind that bonsai is the art of patience. In Japan, bonsai are handed down as heirlooms through the generations. So let's look for the first roots. The most important roots are the secondary roots. Some of these are too high. and can be cut. Now let's work on the lower part.
De abajo. Acuérdense también.
Don't forget that when they grow from cuttings, they have more secondary and primary roots.
People say that bonsai are landscapes in a flower pot. But in order to do so, one must first appreciate nature's strengths. Hirishi Takeyama.
Well, here is the pot where we're going to plant. The pot should have a small mesh at the base.
En el asiento. Le echamos drenaje.
We put drainage material, which can be pebbles, coarse sand.
Arena gruesa.
We look for the front. The front should always be more sparse. The tree should be planted slightly off to one side and slightly set back.
Y ligeramente hacia atrás. Entonces ya
So now we put some soil.
la tierrita.
We make sure the soil gets into all of the crevices.
Los rinconcitos.
What is a bonsai? What is its history? Bonsai cultivation using seeds and cuttings, and collection of naturally occurring bonsai are the topics we've covered so far. Don't miss the second part.
I will tell you the story of two students, each of which started to work on his own tree.
We will continue with our exploration of this beautiful Oriental art form, which has deep ties to Zen Buddhism and is over 1,000 years old.